All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Inspired by DrVonChilla, I am doing my own little video here about the 5 comic books that will never leave my collection. Now, there is a bit of a leeway here, and it could be 5 or 6, as you will see. But let me start off going back. Let's go back in time, back to 1953, November of 1953 to be specific. And one of the, I think, one of the most insane pre-code covers I've ever seen. Leave it to Stanley Morse, of course. And this is none other than Mr. Mystery number 8, uh, the flying cabin zombie uh, issue. And as you can see here, now I just want to point out a couple of things. Now, the woman is, of course, supposedly in her cabin on a boat, cruise, taking a cruise, hanging out in her sexy lingerie there. All right. And she's reading a book. Now, the book says The Dead That Rise. Okay. And that's what she's reading, The Dead That Rise. And indeed, sometimes that does happen to you. So here we have this woman. She's lounging on her bed, and the boat is the SS Mystery, of course. And she's just reading her book there. The Dead That Rise, relaxing after a night of hard partying and disco. And so suddenly, this freaking corpse zombie creature comes flying through her porthole there. All hell is obviously going to break loose. And so there it is, the insane cover. It's just one of those things. And, one thing about this is that I was going to sell this at one time. I don't know why. It's such a stupid thing. The one thing about this particular copy is that it is A, missing some pages. B, it's got a 5-inch spine split. Okay. And so, it you wouldn't really get a lot for it. I mean, I wouldn't sell it for less than 120. And I mean, why sell it? It's just one of the greatest, pre-code covers of all time. So I decided not to. Okay. And I yanked it from sale. And I'm glad I did. It's staying with me. I just think this is one of the most insane, outrageous pre-code covers. I mean, it's not, gruesome or graphic. I mean, but it's dynamic. That no doubt about that. And it's just like one of those what the fuck covers from the pre-code era that it just stands out in my mind. Now, there's also a bit of controversy. I have put in an inquiry for a possible change of correction of the how should you say, they have credited the cover artist as Tony Mortallaro. I believe that's how you spell his name. Now, he did do several Mr. Mystery covers. There's no doubt about that. But I believe this cover I mean, he could have done it and he could have lifted some elements from Maurice Whitman, but I believe it is a Maurice Whitman cover, at least partially, because that woman is a Maurice Whitman woman. Just check out, if you have any issues of Ghost or look up Ghost, check out that woman. I mean, it's absolutely Maurice Whitman, up and down. There's no doubt about it. Much less Tony Mortallaro and much more Maurice Whitman. So after putting together a little collage, kind of like to show the differences and similarities between Maurice Whitman and Tony Mortallaro, I sent that to comics.com comics.org. So we will see what they say about it. Now, I recently, like, I don't know, several weeks ago, I got a confirmation that the correction on my estimation of the cover of this magazine is Haunted number 10. Okay, this magazine is Haunted number 10. There was a bit of a mystery as to who did the cover. And I I was like, look, it's Sheldon Maldoff. There's no doubt about it. So I sent in another kind of a challenge with photos showing the, Maldoff. And of course, Maldoff did some of the this magazine is haunted covers. So it's not a stretch, and they put it in. So if you look at comics.org, I am credited for the correction on the cover artist, and that was indeed Sheldon Maldoff, the great Shelley Maldoff. Okay, but in any case, so this is Mr. Mystery, number 8 from November of 1952. Did I say 53? Sorry. Of 1952, and there you go. I think one of the great covers in pre-code. It's just for its audacity. It's like, man, that's just like, hey, I think I'll draw this cover, and it's just you can imagine seeing this on the newsstand and be like, oh, what the heck? So that is numero uno. I mean, these aren't in particular order, but this is number one in my top five. Okay. And so we will put that away, and we're going to go with the next one. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit here. Okay. And we're going to go to 1987. All right, folks. And this one may surprise you. I don't know. I think it's insane cover. This is 1987, a Twisted Tales one shot. Okay, with this insane Dave Stevens cover. Okay, that I mean, I was an adult in the 1980s. I went to the punk rock shows. This is my life, kind of. I mean, I wasn't. I did not like. I wasn't a poser. I didn't dress up like a punk rocker or anything. I just loved the music. And so we'd go to the shows. I've seen the Dead Boys. I've seen all the, various groups that, I mean, this is 1980s Southern California, Los Angeles, Orange County. So every manner of group that played, I was there. Okay. And this is, it's an interesting cover. As I say, there is an 80s sensibility to it that is just spot on. Some say it's kind of like, it's the guy, kind of ghoulish Dead Boys guy, and Elvira. That could be. I mean, it's kind of she has an Elvira look kind of about her. And the 80s, Elvira, Los Angeles, there you go. But it's just an insanely good cover on all merits. Not only capturing the 80s, definitely, or a good part of the 80s, the music scene, no doubt, the horror scene, absolutely. This is like something, William Stout, those guys were doing this, Return of the Living Dead. This completely has that vibe to it. And so it was, absolutely a natural for me to include it in my top five. This is something I just will, I mean, it's one of those covers. Once again, how you just occasionally take a comic book out just to stare at it for like an hour. This is one of those because Stevens' technique is masterful. It's, hard to believe. I mean, it just really is. You just really, I would recommend you tracking down an issue. They're not that expensive. You can find them. My comic shop, I'm pretty sure it's got it. Hip Comic, no doubt. eBay naturally. But in any case, That is Twisted Tales One Shot 1987. And yeah, and of course, the Bruce Jones, awesome art inside, interior art, and stories by the great Bruce Jones. So, all the way around, this issue does not disappoint. It's freaking fantastic. So, it gets a space in my all-time favorites and ones that I'm not going to sell. Now, let us go to. I'm going mainstream, folks. I'm going mainstream. Jesus, I've sold my soul. No, actually, this is undeniably. I got this when it came out. Okay, and I thrashed that copy, so it was after years after I bought another copy. So this is the other copy. But this is the insane, great Black Panther #1 Marvel Comics. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, two white Jews from New York who created the Black Panther and Wakanda, by the way. Okay. And this is the absolutely stellar introduction to his own book, Black Panther. And the first 3 or 4 issues of this is part of the same cohesive story. So let's see if I can get that. There we go. A little better. So yeah. So this was something where I was like, when I heard, I don't know, several years ago they were doing a Black Panther movie. I was like, well, I wonder if they're going to do this story. It would be so insanely great because, as you notice on this cover, it doesn't bullshit around. It goes right to the action and the intrigue. Everything is happening. Once again, Kirby's dynamic rendering is just hard to beat. That is like you see this cover and you're like, wow, what the hell is going on here? A lot of things happening, and the story does not disappoint. It just doesn't. It doesn't bullshit. It goes right into the action. And then, it explains itself as you get into the story, but there's no BSing around, you know. It's just an insanely great series. Especially those first 3 or 4 issues, okay, with the fantastic Kirby art, Stanley, you just can't, go wrong. And I believe this is like, I want to say 77. It's either January '77 or '78, one of the two. So I'm like a sophomore in high school, and the sucker comes out, and so I just could not resist, obviously, and I was so glad that I picked up a copy of it, and down the road I picked up this copy after I thrashed my first copy. I mean, it's one of those things happens. But there you go. Black Panther #1, just legendary. I think it's one of the greatest Kirby covers ever. And hey, Marvel, hey, Disney, if you could pull your heads out of your butts, maybe you could look back at this and do a film based upon these first books. Yeah, you know what? Then you would have a real big hit on your hands, okay? Because this is the stuff right here. Okay, so there's #3. So, and now we're going to get a little obscure and a little weird. Okay, this is something I got to tell you guys, I didn't even know existed. Okay, until this year, until 2022, didn't know it actually existed. Now everybody knows about Jim Starlin. He's just one of the great comic book artists of all time. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there are so many. Yes, I definitely of all time I'd put him in the top 20, at the bar none. Absolutely. So here is. I'm going to take it out so we won't get any glare out of the damn thing. Yeah, there we go. Here we are, folks. This is from 1970. Back in here. There we go. Dr. Weird. Now, I just did a video on this, and so you should check that out. It goes into detail about the character Dr. Weird. But check that out. I mean, this is like a big size, uh, golden age size kind of comic book released in 1970. This is about 2 years before Starlin went to Marvel and began his legendary career. This is the first comic book cover that Jim Starlin ever did. There it is, Dr. Weird #1, published by the Texas Trio, the Great Texas Trio, uh, consisting of Howard Keltner, who invented the character Dr. Weird, apparently sometime in the 40s or 50s. It did not get its own, yeah, Dr. Weird, the first Dr. Weird story, which is an origin story, is in 1963, the Texas Trio's Star-Studded Comics #1, which is extraordinarily hard to find. This is not easy to find either, but it's worth it. It is totally worth it. A few of the stories in here were also written by George R. Martin, Game of Thrones guy. Yes. And so there you go. When Starlin and Martin were starting out, you know, this is where they were. Dr. Weird, Master of the Macabre, issue #1, fall of 1970. Right there, folks. It is fantastic. The interior art is very good. I mean, it's just it's 1970, man. It's the Texas Trio. There you go. There we go. Of course, it's black and white, but you can see some of the Jim Starlin, unmistakable Starlin stuff right there, already, manifesting itself a few years before Marvel, and good stories, I gotta say. I think probably some of the best stuff that George R. Martin ever wrote is right here, Dr. Weird. Okay. So there you go with that. Dr. Weird makes it to, that is, yeah, to #4. There's one thing I got to show you real quick though, because, Jim Starlin, he's always been a favorite of mine. And so there's Dr. Weird #1, but let me share you an image here that I think is just fantastic. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Yes, that, folks, is. Now let's see. Oops. Ah, that's better. Yeah. So there is the Avengers Annual #7. That is a Jim Starlin cover, and of course you can see the Avengers there kicking alien Thanos's alien soldier butts there, and Captain Marvel is on the scene helping out. It's a melee, right? I mean, you just got the Avengers going ape shit on these guys in the foreground. Uh, I just that is in itself fantastic. You have the spectral image of Thanos looking on, okay, and you have Warlock way in the back looking on the entire proceedings, on the top of this pointed hill back there. And people know why, for good reason. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there's a good reason why he's way in the background. He's looking on, and it's really cool. I mean, this was such a great, monumental Avengers series. Okay, that would be the series to make, right? As far as I'm concerned, they could do this accurately, and it would be way better. I mean, it starts off like some kind of gothic horror thing where they're all in the mansion, stormy night. Warlock shows up, a few other characters show up, as I recall, and they're the warning of, the fact that Thanos is going to attack the Earth, and it's just a kind of a creepy atmosphere. So if I do not have this comic book. I had it. You, I bought it when it came out. Once again, I was late '70s. I was a sophomore. Hell of a time for Marvel. They were really putting out the great stuff, and this is no exception. I think the Avengers 7 annual is one of my favorite Marvel books of all time. If I had this issue in my possession, it would at least tie, okay, for top five. All right, that's what I'm saying here. So that was, yeah, it's just a fantastic book. I highly recommend it if you can find it. Maybe you can read it online, or you can, if you go to comic shop, it depends on what you're looking for. I'm gonna get a copy. I mean, I've seen some 4 to 5.0s for around $30 to $40. That's, I think, very reasonable for that book. It is just fantastic. I highly recommend it. It's kind of like when the writers knew how to write, and certainly you had, there was no clickbait. You had Jim Starlin cover, Jim Starlin art. It was just fantastic. Talk about what I would consider it to be a real Eisner Award nominee. Uh, that's all I'm going to say about that. But the great Jim Starlin, Doctor Weird, 1970, the Avengers Annual, 1977, 1978, somewhere in there. They're both just fantastic in my book, and I think Jim Starlin's one of the greatest. So let's go on to number five. And this is indeed a tie because there's no freaking way that I can tell you which one. But we're going back to Dave Stevens, folks. There is no doubt about it. And, people know this particular Blackthorn issue, number one, Planet Comics, this Dave Stevens cover is just perpetually hot. It is one of the most desirable of that era. Once again, we're talking 80s going early 90s, but Blackthorn, and they put out this, Planet Comics. This is, you know, I think one of Dave Stevens' most iconic covers, and people just love this. They made a poster out of this. You can buy the poster from the Dave Stevens Trust. For instance, Dave Stevens Trust is on Etsy. I believe they're on eBay, but I found them on Etsy. You can buy this poster, and it's just such a fantastic cover. I mean, that's these just absolutely sweet space chicks riding that Rocket 88, and while the goons below trying to grab for that sweet flesh there, and they're just having a grand old time. I'm gonna pull in there. I mean, that is just Dave Stevens' mastery. Okay, there is no doubt about that. So there we go. This is, as I said, a tie. Okay, for number five. That's what I got to say. It's a tie. All right, because this is the other one that is. I just this one gets me. It's another one of those comics that I find myself staring at. Uh, it's just great. I don't know what else to say, but it's Dave Stevens again, and it is, there we go, Three-Dimensional Seduction of the Innocent. Now, this is a series that, yes, put out by Eclipse. And Eclipse back in the day in the 80s, man, Eclipse was one of the greatest. Eclipse eclipsed Marvel and DC, in my estimation, at that time. I think they were just doing fantastic work. The quality was great. There are two 3D comic books of Seduction of the Innocent. The other cover is a Bernie Wrightson cover, which is fantastic. This is the Dave Stevens Pumpkin Girl cover, and it is just, I mean, she's so hot, and so it's just so fun. It's such a great cover, all that pile of pumpkins, and of course down there, uh, right there, the old human head in the pumpkin pile, you know. But this is it's just gorgeous. It's just such a freaking fantastic cover from the great Dave Stevens, and the stories are great too. You just have to get the right kind of glasses. I did a video on 3D glasses and which ones to really use for these comic books. I'm gonna do another one in the future, but the stories look great. They're all pre-code. These are all stories taken from the 1950s, early 1950s, pre-code era, and there are six other issues of Seduction of the Innocent, not 3D. Okay, non 3D, just normal, and they're fantastic too. I mean, the reproductions, all of these are well worth checking out. So you got two 3D issues and six non 3D issues, and I highly recommend all of them. Absolutely every one of them. You will not be disappointed. So there you go. And this is the tie for the the fifth place. I mean, how can you really choose? I just don't see where you can really choose the. Oh, there we go. And yeah, I mean they're just both fantastic. Uh, you know. Uh, so in any case, those tie for my for number five and my favorite covers of all time. And that does it, folks. I'm glad I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have a top five favorite, please do a video and pass it along, and that's pretty much it. So have a great day, and I'll see you later.